mission, they can arrest you. They can arrest you because you voluntarily went into prison. Voluntarily. Your subconscious mind just simply walked you in there because it's a game. But your conscious mind is fear. Control the fear, you start to see things in a very different way. Understand the language that they're using, and then the game is over for them. So you've now gone into a court where you know it is not a level playing field, so it's not a...
Hey, what's up, fam? Can you guys hear me? Let me know if you guys can hear me. I'm sure this is working right. Hey, what's up? Yeah, just waiting for Anu to join us, and yeah, some more people to join us. Give them some time. But thanks for being here and tuning in. And this is like a freestyle one. I just wanted to like really say hi to you guys and talk about certain things that me and Anu talk about in the back chat. He got a lot of tribal knowledge and history. Not just his own, but because he's from the Catawba. But a lot of the different tribal knowledge, and he's always letting me know how a lot of this relates to like old world mythology. So I kind of wanted you guys to experience a little bit of what I experience sometimes. Just conversating with him. And hey, man, let me know if any of you want to join. All right. So Anu says he can't talk. All right. We're gonna work on getting Anu fixed. All right. Just bear with us. All right, you can talk. All right, Anu.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah. All right, let me put the music down. All right, all right. So we got Anu in the house, and I think Kyo was up in here too. Kyo with just uh, build a lot with these two brothers in the back chat. They're always passing me information, and some, I look for them sometimes for guidance and ideas and things like that, and for things sometimes they don't make sense to me, so I want to make sure I need a second opinion, and they help me out a lot with that, pass me a lot of books and stuff, you know. So, so Anu, say hi to the people.
Hey, what's going on with everybody? Peace and blessings. Uh, Definitely want to thank Kurimeo for inviting me on here today. And hopefully we can have a wonderful build for y'all.
Yeah. So yeah, I was letting them know, how we always be chatting in the back and stuff, So it's just in case people don't know, like you, um, can you tell us a little bit about your whole experience, what tribe you're from and what's your experience with that tribe, and you know, just so everybody can get a little background.
Yeah, pretty much, Catawba born and bred, um, proud to, but just come from a history, grew up. We always kept traditional customs, kept the traditional stories going. We pretty much always knew who we were. We were very fortunate. So it was passed down, great grandfather to grandmother and so on and so on. It's always just been a legacy of ours to keep and be more or less, proud of who we were and just keep the name alive, spread it to our children, spread the stories, go to our ceremonies, and just have the ability to enrich ourselves and each other through not only spiritual, but through all the stories from the ancients, and just continue to bring who we were to the forefront and hold that sacred to us.
All right, cool. And so, again, so what is the hit? Can you tell us a little bit of the history of the Catawba? Just
Well, initially, we started out as we're of Dakota stock. We started out in 5300 BC. That's what's been traceable to archaeological digs and finds. Um, Many of us migrated to the south towards North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia regions, Piedmont area, right around the 1100s. What's been found.
all
So,
right.
it was good deals, and it just goes back, man. We go back as far as far as pretty much we can name, but 5300 BC so far from what we can trace.
All right. And so where did it all originate? Like what regions? And
Ohio.
where okay, and where are they, where's the like now modern day, like where would you find the Catawba?
You'll find the majority of us in North and South Carolina in those areas. Still, we do have some in Virginia, and many of us migrated back home to the Ohio Valley. So you'll still find a lot of us in Ohio. You'll find some in Michigan. You'll also find some in Illinois through the disbursement. And we kind of expanded out. We didn't go very far west, but we tried to keep it Midwest and East Coast. And that's where the majority of us were, of Dakota stock. And we do have our Lakota brothers who went further west. But ultimately, same Siouan family, just different dialects.
Okay, all right. So I kind of wanted to start out, maybe we should kind of go to your one of your YouTube videos real quick, just so people can get a feel of, like, the kind of stories I be hearing in the background. So let me just pull up one of your videos. Hey, Kyo, were you in there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, all right. So, what's up with you, Kiowa? Everything good?
Sir, living life, living beautiful.
All right. And so, Kyo, are you what's your story? Like, are you also a Catawba, in the Catawba tribe?
Yes,
And
sir. Supporting job all day, every day.
okay, and how did that? I mean, and Anu was born into the tribe, and he kind of grew up within it. What is your background, your story? Being, how did you?
Oh, shoot, actually, growing up, I always knew I was an Indian, but that was just through family history. And then from there, kind of lost my way a little bit. But then a couple years ago, after my father passed, I wanted to pick up where he left off because he was trying to find out which tribe that the family came from.
The Kaloa.
All right,
So then I just took it as a challenge to finish what he started. And then thankfully, I was actually able to come home, especially with the help of a new.
all right, cool. And so when you say come home, what did you mean? Like, what did you do? Because you're recognized, right, as a Catawba, a tribal person. Now you have a um your whole what you call it, your documentation and everything submitted to them, right? You did what was the whole process?
Basically, I had to go to genealogy, start off with the four generations on both sides, as best I could, and then find that link that tied me into Saponi or Catawba, and was able to find a little bit of both amongst a bunch of other tribes that were also mixed in there too. But it's Saponi Catawba basically helped bring me home. That's where I'm at, and that's where I'm staying.
All right. So you guys are like base, well, especially you, well, Wanagi as well, I know, and Opimia, you guys are like examples of going through your genealogy and then finding out and being able to like submit this to the tribe that you're from, and they go over it, and they verify that you are of that lineage, of that family. And so it's like, for me, it's like it's a great example for everybody else, to go ahead, and if you don't think this, you could find your tribe, you might be able to, and try to do your genealogy as much as you can, get as much info, and you never know. And so and now you got these brothers, they're tribed up, like, for real. All
You
right.
actually do work within your tribe for the greater whole, starting with your tribe. Basically, like, look at your tribe as your house. Get your house in order, and then you can branch out to start helping others get themselves in order.
And there's a lot people will learn throughout their search. I mean, um, just in general, to bring this up, the Catawba Confederacy actually held 37 different tribes, 37 different individual tribes, and took them in. So during the search, many people will find out that many tribes on the East Coast did join the Catawba Confederacy, different groups, and they'll start to find out how individuals merged and blend. And they'll also find out that there's a very rich culture and a very rich heritage, not only material, but in a spiritual sense. And in my opinion, when you find out that spiritual sense and you're able to look into it, see who you are, enrich yourself with um, everything, not only that the tribe does, but your heritage, your culture, the breath that you breathe in, it changes a lot, and it opens your mind, and it really does open your eyes. So, I just wanted to add that.
All right, all right, yeah. So can you just like, just to keep going, um, what is it like? Because people have and they think they have an idea of what it's like being in a reservation, being a part of a tribe. Uh, what was your experience in it? And I know that how you let me know, you go through some things, you have to deal with your own kind of prejudices and all that. And so what is your experience, and what would you say is the best way to how do you describe your tribe? How would you describe the tribe?
The tribe, the tribe in itself is very loving. I mean, the tribe in itself, of course, you do go through. People are people by nature, but just getting in and experiencing everything spiritually. Growing up, of course, we had to go through different things. especially saying that you were an Indian. People did not like the fact you said you were Indian. You were kind of outcast and called different names, sell out, different things like that. 'Cause, you know, a lot of people are on the more or less African slave trade narrative.
All
But
right.
even though we knew who we were, it's still, you know, still got hassled for it.
All right. And when you say people, like, was that your, would you say a copper colored person, like your own brothers and
Yes.
sisters? All right. And why do you think that is? Would they, why was it bad to be an Indian and stuff? What do you think? Why do you think they thought like that?
To be honest with you, it's, I guess, the story behind it. When individuals look and they look at the slave trade narrative, they look at what happened, they look at roots, they look at all that stuff. It's what they believe physically went on and went on in those days. I'm not saying whether I can dispute or go back and forth, but us as Indians went through horrible times. Us as Indians, from the Indian Removal Act, Indian sterilization. I mean, that was spread across the entire United States, Canada, South America, Indian genocide. It was one of the largest genocides this world has ever seen. So people tend to neglect, but, everybody bought into the root story, and just kind of the way we looked, and many of our ancestors, cousins. My grandmother was a very beautiful, dark complected woman with gray hair, dark copper woman. And just even to say you were an Indian, people kind of looked at you sideways, or they'd say, they just didn't accept your Indian heritage. And it's nice to know that people now are beginning to accept their Indian heritage, regardless of the skin tone that they are, and noticing that we are brothers of copper complexion. But it was tough coming up. It was tough coming up and knowing what you were and where you come from.
Okay. Do you think I could put up the picture I have of the green corn?
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Okay. Just want to make sure people get in a better, clear perspective. And so can you explain what this day was, and what's the tradition behind it, and just a lot of people that don't know these things, and so maybe we can get started there. We're talking about mythology and all that, and the history behind what this festival is.
Yeah, the Green Corn Festival is something that's, held sacred to us. It's always been held sacred to the people, not just of our culture, but many different tribes and cultures, regardless of Algonquin, Iroquois, Siouan. But it has a very rich heritage behind it, and understanding the mythology behind it from tribe to tribe, understanding who Mother Corn is. Also, you have to go in and be able to understand the three creations, and why corn is held so sacred to the Indian people, why it's such a blessing, and what creation we're in. Because, do you mind if I go into the story of the three creations?
Yeah, please do. Let's make sure we talk about all your as much tribal knowledge as you have, so people can we ain't got nowhere to go, so we're here to talk and build and discuss these things that we may have never heard.
Well, not a problem. I'll kind of sum it up. The first creation, the creator made of wood, but the individuals began to look at each other and each different type of tree, and they noticed that they were different. So as these trees or people of wood noticed that they were different, they started to make tribes, and they started to break up. You had the great elm, you had the pine tree, you had many different groups who were made of wood. They began to wage war against one another. And seeing this, the creator looked down upon them and said they had to go, because they no longer understood that they all came from the same ground. But they were different, and they were waging war amongst each other instead of being brothers. So the creator looked down and he burnt the wood down. Then from that start, the creator looked, and he looked down and he saw the stones. So the creator said, "Stones, stand and rise. You are my next creation." So the stones stood and they rose, and they began to speak to each other, one another. At first, they loved one another. They had no troubles. But they understood that they lived very, very long time. And through that, their hearts began to grow cold from what one had done to another. So as they grew colder, they lost their lust for life. They lost they lost what they were looking for and able to take care of the earth that had been granted to them. So the Creator looked down and he said, this time I must wash them away because the fire will do nothing to the stone. So the Creator sent a great flood down and washed all the people of stone. The third creation, mixing from the ash and from the soil that came from the mountains, had made a beautiful layer of land. So the Creator looked down and said, I don't want to make a wild person like the people of wood, but I don't want to make a cold-hearted person like the people of stone. So what I will do is, I will plant corn. So the Creator set down corn, and the corn began to grow. And as the corn grew and grew, he said, this will be my final creation. So the corn became many colors. Yellows, browns, different colors of copper, strawberry corn, different corns in different colors. And the Creator looked down and saw that it was good and said, I will make my creation of this. So the people of the corn were made and began to disperse across the four winds. When the Creator looked at those people and he saw that they began to disperse, he said, just like anything else with the season, the corn will disperse. It will become yellow corn, red corn, copper colored corn, different types. But when they reunite and they become like the original ear of corn, they will finally understand what the Creator's message was. So through division by our punishment, that's why we have been divided. But until we can come together and make the original corn that the Creator had put down that was of numerous colors, we won't understand yet his creation. And that's the story of the three creations. Currently we're in the third. And from what they say is the final creation. So there's only a certain amount of time that we have to link back together and to become one. So that all the stories where the corn has been taken within the wind will come back together. And when we share all of our stories, we will fully understand the Creator himself. So
Yeah,
thanks for letting me tell that one.
yeah, that's a great one. And so it just seems like there's supposed to be a kind of brotherhood, right? And to me, it sounds like, there's that not everybody's the same, right? And
No.
but they are family, and they were created on, by the Great Spirit, right, of the Most High.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so tell us, okay, so who's in this picture right here that we're seeing?
Yeah, those are individuals who are all with the tribe. We're actually blessed to have these brothers together, man. It was a great time. The one in the center, that is our chief, Chief Haithcock, wonderful man. To the left of Haithcock is me. To the right is Brother Red Clay. He's a wonderful brother too.
All right, yeah, Red Clay out there. He got some videos on YouTube. Make sure you guys go check those out. A lot of knowledge as well.
Yeah, Stephen Red Clay. I mean, top-notch guy, man. Top-notch guy. To the left of me, you will find Love Legacy. He has a channel himself. Another top-notch guy. He does genealogy. He's really good with it. He's making his way through. He's helping people find their way home. Also, to the right of Red Clay, you will see Opie Miha. Opie Miha, you can subscribe to his channel also. Fortunately, we've got a couple YouTubers on here. The final brother to the left, he is one of the younger tribal dancers. He comes out, he knows the dances, he comes to the functions, he does the ceremonies, he does the ceremonial dances. And then furthest to the right, that would be Butch, Chief Butch. Once again, another wonderful individual. He is a Catawba, very strong man, and that was just one of the pictures of the many from our Green Corn Fest.
Yeah, so shout out to the photographer for this is a great picture, for that day. And so that. So what is the corn, the Green Corn Festival mean to you? Uh,
The corn was the corn was a blessing to us. The
mhm.
corn was how we survived through the harsh winters. They believed that when the age of ice came, or what people would consider the ice age, there was corn, and when the corn came, it was planted for us to be able to help us to sustain ourselves. At the time, a lot of things were the northern regions were becoming ice, the southern regions were becoming dust, and it was sent down by the Creator in order to sustain us, to be able to help us, and also to cleanse us. But it was also sent down as a symbol. In my personal opinion, it was sent down as a symbol to realize that even though we are different, that we must come together and share the knowledge. So through that corn, I look at it and I understand the story of the corn, and that we are in this third creation. And we do have to share knowledge, sit down, become one, show love, and begin to heal this earth. And that's what it means to me personally.
Okay. Yeah, because from my corn videos, in my research with corn, um, its story, wherever you follow it, all ancient cultures say that the gods gave it to them, and it was basically something that was, well, even scientists will let you know that they don't know how it was done, but it seemed to have just been, genetically altered from the original Teosinte plant, which grew here in America. And this, corn doesn't grow in the wild. It needs our help to grow. So, like, to me, it shows an exclusiveness to a specific people. Like here, this for you, or this knowledge, this science was from a specific people. And corn is really what in ancient times helped these people settle down and create towns, tribal communities and civilizations, because they were able to settle down and have time for other things. And corn was a big key to that. And we see it if you're into the Torah, you see it all over the Torah as well, and the stories of Egypt and everything and all that, saving corn and all that. You find corn all over the Egyptian hieroglyphics in Babylonia, Sumeria. You find corn everywhere. You find corn being held by the Hindu statues in India. Yeah, it's not no it's not no acorn. They try. It's corn. It's just, you can see it. I mean, any agriculturist, specialist, when they've gone to see these statues, they'll tell you, yeah, this is corn. There's no doubt, this is corn. So this is before any Columbus or any Spaniard came over here, and because they try to say that he brought it back, but it was already all over the world, because we were going all over the world. All right, so yeah, I think that corn is very significant, and there's a reason why the tribes in North America and the rest of the countries in Central and South, they celebrate the corn and everything. And one of the things that's tradition as well is giving the first fruits. Uh, is that part of your tribal history as well?
Yes, actually, there's many things. Man, you actually brought up a wonderful topic. Yeah, giving the first fruits, letting the land rest. I mean, there's so many things that we still do today that you can find in the biblical text. I mean, and this was pre-European. We were practicing, and the days of the week for us were day 1 through 6, and then the seventh day was day of rest. Same thing with the land, and same thing with your first fruits and your harvest. That's why we also have the Feast of Intergathering and the Harvest Festival, is to show respect to Creator. That's what we've done since as far back as our people know historically. Like I said, 5300 BC. That's a long time to be doing the same ceremony. And when they did the archaeological digs, that they found that there were ceremonial places in these archaeological sites where they were still holding these festivals. And not only these festivals, they were still paying homage to a creator. And this was
Okay.
something that has been done.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I apologize.
Yeah, all right, no worries. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna show people your YouTube channel real quick. And hold on. All right. So anybody that don't know about him, go make sure to check out his channel. Is A New Breed right here. And he has a lot of different videos on tribal history, folklore, mythology. Just shares it. Especially like if you got kids, make sure they hear this. These are great stories, and they all have like a moral thing behind them. All right, so I wanted to go ahead and put this video on, and then you let me know what other videos we can share for everybody. Let me just put down the music. So what's this video about here? Don't talk about giants.
Yes, actually, the ancient stories that we do have about giants. Throughout mythology, we have numerous stories of giants. This is just one of the stories. I will actually start doing more in the series. Don't talk about giants, the different tribes, what type of giants there were, and the folklore and tribes that are attached to these individual giants and groups. This one is Lovelock Cave.
All right.
Genesis 6, verse 4. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were men of old, men of renown. This is not about the origins of the giants. This is strictly about whether or not we believe they existed, and why so many different tribes have so many different names for all of these giant creatures. One as such is the Mui, a man-eating ice giant of the Lenape legends, or the Wendigos, evil man-eating giants of the Anishinaabe. The Kalowa are a giant hairy man-eating ogre from the Creek storytellers, or the Kyoku of the Micmac tribe. The name Kyoku is because they were so big that when they walked around, it felt like an earthquake. The Stone Coat, those having the name given by the Iroquois for the rock giants twice the size of humans, and they also hunted throughout winter and ice, and they had hard rock scales that were strong enough to repel all weapons that were thrown at them. One such story is that written by the Paiutes. Among the traditions of our people is one of a small tribe of barbarians who used to live along the Humboldt River. It was many hundred years ago. They used to waylay my people and kill and eat them. They would dig large holes in our trails at night, and if any of our people traveled at night, which they did, for they were afraid of these barbarian people, they would be oftentimes fall into the holes. That tribe would eventually eat them. They would eat their own dead. Yes, they would even come and dig up our dead after they were buried, and would carry them off and eat them. Now and then they would come and make war with my people. They would fight, and as fast as they killed one another on either side, the women would carry off those who were dead. My people say that they were very brave. When they were fighting, they would jump into the air after the arrows that went over their heads, and they would shoot the same arrows back at us. My people took some of them into as their families, but they could not make them like themselves. So at last, they made war on them. This war lasted for a time. Their number was 2,600. The war lasted some 3 years. My people killed them in great numbers, and what few were left went into the thick brush. My people set the brush on fire. This was right above Humboldt Lake. Then they went to work and made tule and dulebrush boats and went into Humboldt Lake. They could not live there very long without fire. They were nearly starving. My people were watching them as they round the lake and would kill them as fast as they would come onto land. At last, one night, they all landed on the east side of the lake and went into the cave near the mountains. It was the most horrible place, for my people watched as the mouth of the cave, and they would kill them as they came out for water. My people would ask them if they would be like us, not to eat our people, not to be like coyotes or beasts. They talked in the same language, but they would not give up. At last, my people were tired, and they went to work and gathered wood and began to fill up the mouth of the cave. The poor fools. They began to drag the wood inside the cave until it was full, not knowing what my people would do. At last, my people set it on fire, and at the same time they cried out to them, "Will you give up and be like man, and not eat our people like beasts? Please say quick, and we will put out the fire." No answer came from the cave. My people said they thought the cave must have been very deep or far into the mountain. They had never seen a cave, nor knew it was there until then. They called out to them as loud as they could, "Will you please give up? Say so or you will die." But no answer came. Then they all left the place. In 10 days, some went back to see if the fire had gone out. They went back to my 3rd or 5th great-grandfather and told him that they all must be dead. There was such a horrible smell. This tribe was called the People Eaters, or the Siteka, after my people killed them all. The people around us called us Seido Kara. It means the conqueror. It also means enemy. I do not know how we came with the name the Paiutes. It is not an Indian word. I think it is a misinterpretation. Sometimes we are called the Pine Nut Eaters, for we are the only tribe that lives in the country where the pine nuts grow. But my people say that the tribe we exterminated were very large with reddish hair. I have some of the hair which has been handed down from father to son. I have a dress which has been made in our family and kept for many years, trimmed with the reddish hair of the giants we had to slay.
All right. Cool, man. So it's very interesting. I know a lot of people, like this topic, and a lot of people talking about giants and all that. And it's interesting that you start out with Genesis. Of course, maybe some people haven't, ever seen that verse, but we know that, in the Old Testament and the Bible is full of giants, and we can see that you didn't just, quote from the Bible. You were telling us tribal history. So, we know these people had nothing to do with the Bible or never even encountered the Bible or anything, but they had the same stories, right? Let's get a little bit into that. So, you're telling stories not just from Catawba, yeah, from different tribes, and what is, you think, the origin of the story of giants? And where would you say, do you know any tribal history that talks about where they originated?
Yeah, actually, it's it's biblical, believe it or not. A lot of the giants were in. They say that they had been around, but they had come up at a certain point in time. I'm trying to remember exactly what tribe the story came from. I don't have my mythology book right in front of me. But they did come. There was a group who came from the stars, and when they came from the stars, they had created these giants by once again breeding with women, and it follows the biblical account that there were star people who came down, and when they did, they bred with women, and they had made people of renown. These giants, these different people with not only physical strength, but spiritual. And it wasn't in a good way. So when you hear about those, your giants of North America, which most people hear about, you'll find out that they were giant, pale complected, red hair, blue eyes. You have ice giants that were blue skin with blue hair. There's numerous stories. These giants actually had their own tribes, different locations, but not only from my belief, but from mythology, I do believe it goes really, really close and goes hand in hand with the biblical tale of the fallen angels that came down and bred with women.
All right. You find this all over, a lot of these tribes. So, like, it's what we're trying to kind of always say, that you are the book. These stories, where you think they got these Bible stories from, and we know that the creation story, you can find it in Popol Vuh. Obviously, you talked about the flood when you're talking about the creation story and the corn, and so how much flood stories as well do you find in North American tribes?
The flood stories I've actually found were all over the world. North American tribes, every tribe, not one or two, every tribe has a flood story, and they correlate very close. The only difference is the belief in how the recreation happened. That was the only difference that I had found throughout them. But also, a lot of those correlate too, with the land being sprinkled on, of course, the turtle's back, and those different things you'll generally find. But the flood story is every tribe. If you go ask your elders, or you find anyone who is an elder, ask them, and if they are familiar with the stories, they will tell you. Every single tribe, not neglecting a single one, all have a flood story.
All right. And it's significant, right? How they, it sounds just like, the Bible tells us about falling angels and, or the Nephilim. And so some people will relate that with Zachariah Sitchin's story about the Anunnaki, right? Those who came down, or those from heaven, whatever the name is. And so what do you, so it's the same story, right? I mean, do you see the Anunnaki story in North America?
Yes, I do. I see that story, but in a different light. Now, the term or the word Anunnaki, translated into three different tongues, and one being Tutelo, you can find it in the old tongue. The word Anunnaki means my enemy. Other tribes use the term Anunnaki as my enemy, so the term, the actual word was around.
Okay. What tribe was that again? What language?
Tutelo. You'll find it in the old Tutelo text.
All right. So Anunnaki is actually my enemy?
Yes, my enemy.
Okay. So what do you think is the so these star people, like what else can you tell us, about the star people? Like what other stories do you have?
Well, certain tribes revered them as kind of like gods. Other tribes looked at them as enemies. Individually, the whole pretty much everything that goes on when you're dealing with, but when you're dealing with the legends of just what we would consider aliens today, the Siouan people, they looked at them, of course, as enemies because they would come down and they would abduct women and children. You have other ones who said they had a sacred knowledge. These are more or less your southwestern tribes. They looked at them to have some sacred knowledge. You have individual groups who say they come from the Pleiades, but we have a belief system that we came from here and a group came to invade. So it kind of goes from tribe to tribe, but ultimately, off my tribal history, there's nothing good about them. Like I said, they are an enemy that will eventually return, and we have to be prepared to fight a war. And that's just...
All right. So this is basically, like how you explain it, this is not just mythology, right?
No. My people hold this as true. And many different Siouan people also do. Many different Siouan groups, they do. This is something we believe is going to happen. It has happened once and it will happen again. We just have to be prepared and come together as one and unite, because, we can either stand together or we can all die separately.
All right. So it's interesting. So this story, when they say they came down, would you say, you think that has anything to do with, because how they say that, when the Greeks speak about Atlantis, they kind of tell it like in a moral way, right? There's just a moral lesson behind the story of Atlantis, and how they were maybe using technology in a way they weren't supposed to, or doing something unnatural. You were telling me about, so we're about to get deep right now, right? So you're telling me about the Merkaba and all that. Can you?
Yeah, I can definitely go into that one.
All right.
When you get into the Merkaba, you can call it the Merkaba. It is a multi-dimensional, what would be known as six-pointed star. So it is one pyramid that is shaped facing upwards and one pyramid that is facing downwards. During the time of Atlantis, there was said to be a group of warmongering people who had come down to Atlantis, and they tried to intermingle with the Atlanteans. The Atlanteans, seeing what they were doing, had separated the Mercury. One part of the Mercury was on their planet, the other part of the Mercury was here. They had separated into two pyramids because they couldn't destroy it into more pieces than that, so they had separated it, and anything that was interdimensional, it stopped. They separated into two parts. The two parts were sunk to the bottom of the sea, and they are what we know as the Bermuda Triangle now and the Dragon's Triangle, which coincidentally lay on the exact same line, longitude and latitude. They lay on the exact same line on both sides of the earth. But the individuals who came down, the Atlanteans tried to make them like themselves, to be a peaceful, loving people who were spiritual, but they had technology. Some of the Atlanteans had began to look at the technology and they were astounded by it. So by going to the technology, they began to get a means of materialism rather than spiritualism. And punishment for that was when the vibration went down, the vibration was through the heart, the mind, the body, and the soul. That's what made Atlantis actually rise to the surface. It was a spiritual land and a spiritual center. When these people began to believe in materialism and they no longer had the spiritual well-being and a spiritual belief system, Atlantis sunk, and it won't be regenerated until people can get on that same level. Now, this is just a heads up to everybody out there. I'm letting you know this is just a story, and this is mythology. So, but we will get a little deeper here, trust me.
All right. But I think, like I was saying, that there's like a whole moral thing behind the whole Atlantis thing and the way they tell it, the Greeks, and how they say, they had such great power, but then, something happened all of a sudden, And I mean, we know from, our research and studies that what they're calling Atlantis was a real place and is still a place. We know not all of it went down. There was like a section, a capital. There was a main place though. And I guess you can see the remnants, in the Caribbean, islands, and the what you call the Madeiras, Azores, Cape Verde, the peaks of it. And so we know that Atlantis, that was all the mounds. There was at one time that was Atlantis colonies, what they're calling Atlantis. Central America, South America, Peru. We know that the Greeks knew about, what was over here, and it's basically just referencing the mighty nations and empires that were over here in ancient times, the people who were really spreading civilization. That's why it was so renowned. And so you mentioned like that story, how people weren't being spiritual and everything. Do you think spirituality is a big thing in the indigenous people's life and history?
Yeah, I do. Spirituality, it showed us who we were. It showed us, everything around us. It showed us how to respect nature, live in peace with our animal brother, and how to keep the waters clean. How to understand the trees, understand the circle that this life is built in. Through each life and each individual, we are spiritual creatures, and our energy is constant, but we have to understand how to keep that flow going. They've figured out ways not only to stop it, but to put out bad energy through not just media, through music, through different things. And it just it continually lowers our vibration. It puts us in a negative position and constantly putting out negative energy. So sitting that out, I believe there is something that harnesses and uses good, and something that harnesses and uses bad energy. You can kind of tell. That's when the study of spiritual vortexes comes into play. Being able to get into spiritual vortexes, different things like that. And once you're able to really go on that, it builds a big difference. Spirituality was the center of who we were. it made us. You know, we just lost ourselves to materialism, same as the people in Atlantis.
Okay. Yeah, it's very I mean, modern times now, right? I mean, there's a constant battle, I think a lot of people get confused between religion and spirituality, or just having a connection with, the creator, the great spirit, whatever you want to call him, and I mean, for me personally, this is my opinion, let everybody know, I don't see how you can be like, because from what I'm learning about the tribes and how they all believed in this great spirit and this, one creator, how you cannot be spiritual if you're claiming to be tribal. But that's just me, you know. I know that there was many nations here, many different peoples, and like what we're trying to say, like what I'm trying to talk about is, we're talking about giants, right? We're talking about that there's stories of people from the stars and or just different, somebody different, something foreign, something alien, what the word means, alien, like, just foreign. We're not talking about spinning balls, you know. So I mean, so these entities, these people, these invaders, these aliens, whatever you want to call them, Anunnaki, they definitely seems to have had a big influence in some of our own peoples, right? So what do you got to say like about that? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like what I'm getting at?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, they're still here, man. They never left. They never left. I don't know what some people want to call them. I'm not going to get into too many conspiracy theories, but our people still believe they never left. They still dictate things that go on, and they still hold us to a material, um, and they still hold us to material possessions and make us want those shiny things. So, yeah, I still believe they do dictate a lot. They dictate a lot of the trends, a lot of the things that go on. And I've found through materialism, most people do lose touch with spirituality. They're at a loss in touch with the creator. But it's normally over shiny objects and trinkets. You get what I'm saying there?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, um, so in the Bible it says that when these Nephilim, right, when they came down, the Nephilim, and they made it with the daughters of men, then the giants came. All right, so you basically touched on this in tribal history, right? And what is the I mean, we know that those stories were here before they got here with their Bibles, right? So, you know, we know that we were talking about a promised land or a holy place or a place where you want to call the center or navel of the earth. We know that that's over here, you know. When we're talking about like a fertile soil, a place where there's thousands and thousands of pyramids and cities that they're still finding now with their lidar technology. We're talking about a real land of milk and honey. We know that the Spaniards, when they came, I did my video on it. They just wrote, they were amazed how much, just abundance of fruits, fertile land, corn, things hanging off the tree, gold in the river, pearls in the ocean. There was everything over here, and to us it was just like, that was just what the creator gave us. That was our gift, right? And so we had kind of like a bond with this, and we know how to take care of it, and be grateful about it. Maybe not all of us. There's always some static, like we're saying, and if this static was influenced by other things, what we're talking about, then then it's a spiritual war, right? A frequency war, that we're saying. So and a lot of people go with their nature. A lot of people go with their nature, but like what I'm learning about the ancient tribes and the ancestors and everything, and they were very spiritual people, and they knew about these entities and these what they call other spirits or whatever, um, that they existed, and so they kind of constantly protected themselves against things like that, right?
Yeah, there's actually ceremonies and dances that were done in order to protect themselves from things like that. Not just in the spiritual realm, but in the physical realm. It was said that when the lights would come from the sky, our people would do dances and our people would do ceremonies in order to get those bad or evil spirits away. And then prac- there were practices of saging, um, using different things like that in order to cleanse and keep all that stuff away. So, yeah, I mean, you hitting it right on the head.
All right. Can is there another video we can sh show everybody from your channel?
Oh, please feel free, whichever one you want to go with. Matter of fact, the Turtle Island creation story is a good one.
All right. Let's get that one real quick.
Long before the world was created, there was an island floating in the sky, upon which the sky people lived. They lived quietly and happily. No one ever died, or was born, or ever experienced sadness. However, one day one of the sky women realized she was going to give birth to twins. She told her husband, who flew into a rage. In the center of the island, there was a tree which gave light to the entire island, since the sun had not been created yet. He tore up this tree, creating a huge hole in the middle of the island. Curiously, the woman peered into the hole. Far below, she could see the waters that covered the earth. At that moment, her husband pushed her in. She fell through the hole, tumbling towards the waters below. Water animals already existed on the earth, so far below the floating island, two birds saw the sky woman fall. Just before she reached the waters, they caught her on their backs and brought her to the other animals. Determined to help the woman, they dove into the water to get mud from the bottom of the seas. One after another, the animals tried, and they failed. Finally, a little toad tried, and when he reappeared, his mouth was full of mud. The animals took it and spread it on the back of the big turtle. The mud began to grow and grow until it became the size of what we call North America. Then the woman stepped onto the land. She sprinkled dust into the air and created the stars. Then she created the moon and sun. The sky woman gave birth to twin sons. She named one Sapling. He grew to be kind and gentle. She named the other Flint, as he was as cold as his name. They quickly grew and began filling the earth with their creations. Sapling created what was good. He made animals that are useful to humans. He made rivers that went two ways, and into those he put fish without bones. He made plants that people could easily eat. If he was able to do all the work himself, there would be no suffering. Flint destroyed much of Sapling's work and created all that is bad. He made rivers that flow in only one direction. He put bones in fish and thorns on berry bushes. He created winter. But since Sapling gave it life, that it could go away and make way for spring. He created monsters his brother drove deep into the earth. Eventually, Sapling and Flint decided to fight till one conquered the other. Neither was able to win at first, but finally, Flint was beaten. Because he was a deity, Flint could not die, so he was forced to live on the big turtle's back. And to this day, occasionally, you can still feel his anger whenever you feel the volcanoes erupt.
Yeah, that's deep right there. That's deep, man. Hey, so did you grow up hearing these stories? Like, are these part of your bedtimes and all that, or how did you come across all these stories?
Actually, I was fortunate enough that I did hear some of them, not all of them, but some of them during those times. And then I began to reach out and look and study different folklore from different tribes. And I tried to figure out, I was kind of lost at the time. So I tried to figure out what was the meaning to them, because each of them has a beautiful meaning. But I found out that they're not just beautiful meanings. A lot of them have a lot of truth to them. And then through that, I was able to learn my heritage. And in my teenage years, I began to study and extend out into folklore from other tribes just to see how we looked as brothers, and just began to see and began to feel it more, and just was moved by it more with each story. And as my collection grew and I began to listen and understand and start to pull the stories out from them, it definitely did affect not only my mind but my heart. And I share these with my children and my family, nieces and nephews. And the main reason I do them is so people can listen and to be able to feel that connection with their ancestors, the same ones who told these stories, and the same ones who passed these stories down to storytellers, and eventually them coming to me. So, I do thank the ancestors, and I thank those who did pass down all of the stories. And I hope to share many more with everyone out there. I was fortunate, and I hope everyone else will be just as fortunate.
All right, that's awesome, man. As being able to grow up and hear them, or just, knowing that they exist, you're able to go, seek and find more and more and read into the different tribes' mythology. Because, man, you got a lot of different things, and, we can probably do this a couple more times, go live, and you can keep telling us these different stories, because I think everybody should definitely know them. They're, cool. It doesn't always have to be about me just reading and all that, but talking about that, since we're in the subject, I wanted to go ahead and read this. Just see what we can find here. Now let's remember, this is according to Lewis Spence. He's an author. So this is the book, The Myths of North American Indians. And this part of the book, let me see, kind of page 106, says Myths of the American Indians, creation myths, right? Because we were just talking about the creation. All right. So it says, the mythologies of the red man are infinitely more rich and creative and deluge myths than those of any other race in the two hemispheres. All right, right there is telling you straight up that the flood story, the deluge, and all that, it's actually more common on this side of the earth, right here in America. The red man, you are the red man. They're talking about copper colored. All right, and so, what does that tell you automatically? Because they're always telling us that all that happened on the other side and it had nothing to do with here, and this is the new world, But you're ancient and you've been here. You didn't come from anywhere else. All right, and so this story is part of your oral story, like we were just talking about it earlier. I mean, we heard Anu, talk to us about the corn and the creation stories, and one of them was, wiped away with the flood, the waters, right? So it says, tales which deal with the origin of man are exceedingly frequent and exhibit every phase of the type of creative story. Although many of these are similar to European and Asiatic myths of the same class, others show great originality and strikingly present to our minds the characteristics of American aboriginal thought. The creation myths of various Indian tribes differ as much from one another as do those of Europe and Asia. In some, we find the great gods molding the universe. In others, we find them merely discovering it. Still others lead their people from subterranean depths to the upper earth. In many Indian myths, we find the world produced by the All-Father Sun, who thickens the clouds into water, which become the sea. In the Sunni record of creation, Awona Wilona, the creator, fecundates the sea with his own flesh and hatches it with his own heat. From this green scum are formed which become the fourfold Mother Earth and the all-covering Father Sky, from whom sprang all creatures. Then from the nethermost of the four caves of the world the seed of men, and the creatures took form and grew, even as with eggs in warm places. Worms quickly form and appear, and growing soon burst their shells, and there emerge, as may happen, birds, tadpoles, or serpents. So man and all creatures grew manifoldly and multiplied in many kinds. So again, what? They just said man and, right? All creatures multiplied in many kinds, many mankinds. Not everybody's the same, right? Thus did the lowermost world cave become overfilled with living things, full of unfinished creatures, crawling like reptiles over one another in black darkness, thickly crowding together, treating one another, one spitting on another, and doing other indecency in such manner that the murmuring and lamentations became loud, and many amidst the growing confusion sought to escape, growing wiser and more manlike. Then Poshai Ankia, the foremost and wisest of men, arising from the nethermost sea, came among men and the living things, and pitying them, obtained egress from the first world cave, through such a dark and narrow path, that some seeing somewhat crowding after could not follow him. So eager mightily did they strive one with another. Alone then did Poshainka come from one cave into this world, then island-like, lying amidst the world's waters, vast, wet, and unstable. He sought and found the Sun Father, and besought him to deliver the man and the creatures from the nethermost world. All right, so that was like a reference to. Does any of these stories sound familiar to you, Anu?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've studied a couple of them. I mean, I love going through not only Iroquoian, but I also go through Algonquin. I go through Ute. You know, different tribes. So yeah, very familiar.
Okay, just gonna read this one, the Algonquin creation myth. Now it says, in many other Indian mythologies, we find the wind brooding over the primeval ocean in the form of a bird. All right. So a primeval ocean, in Genesis, this is what I was showing in one of my videos, how Popol is the same exact thing. A vast ocean. When we got Genesis, it talks about that, the earth was just water, and that the Spirit of God hovered over the waters, right? And over here, right away, it told us that we find the wind brooding over the primeval ocean in the form of a bird, or the wind in the form of a bird flying over the oceans, the same thing. In some creation myths, amphibious animals dive into the waters and bring up sufficient mud with them to form a beginning of the new earth. In a number of these tales, no actual act of creation is recorded, but a reconstruction of a matter only. The Algonquins relate that their great god Michabo, when hunting one day with wolves for dogs, was surprised to see the animals enter a great lake and disappear. He followed them into the waters with the object of rescuing them, but as he did so, the lake suddenly overflowed and submerged the entire earth. Mishabo dispatched a raven with directions to find a piece of earth which might serve as a nucleus for a new world, but the bird returned from his quest unsuccessful. All right. To me, I mean, I don't know if anybody catching on. That sounds like the Noah story. You know how he sends out the bird to look for the land to see if it was dry. All right, and so they sent first, I believe, a raven or something. He didn't come back. All right, so it's telling you right here that Mishabo dispatched a raven. Same thing. All right. So did the Algonquin people plagiarize this from the Bible, from the Noah story, or which way was it really plagiarized? So, and is this the only account of tribe in North America talking about the same kind of things and about what happened in the story of Noah, and specifically a raven that didn't come back? All right, that's exact story of Noah sending the raven and then not coming back. It's like that's somebody's copying somebody. All right, and then it created their biblos, the compilation of books, Bibles. Biblos, a Greek word, but you are the book. This is what I'm saying. You are the book. This isn't your stories. All right, you just haven't, you're not going into it deeply. You're not seeing, now he's calling this myths, right? He's calling these myths. So Anu, uh, to the tribal people is more than myths, right?
Oh yeah, these are way more than myths. These are a way of life. These are belief systems. These aren't,
And
you know, they're
would you say that possibly they could be real historic events and just described in a certain way?
I'm personally, you know, my personal opinion, I do. Um, Ultimately, I try not to put limitations on what is out there, what can be done. For instance, I was actually going to ask you if you could drop, if the people wanted to hear it, if you could actually do the Bigfoot video, you know, the Great Elder Brother, because that shows that there are no limitation on what goes on in some of these accounts. They're not just thought up; they come from truth and what our ancestors have seen.
All right. So definitely, I also believe, you know, a lot of these are, I mean, from basically from what I know in my country, you know, the indigenous stories and everything. A lot of it we know when we go talk to the tribal people that, you know, telling them, you know, they know it's more than just a myth and a story. It's just the way that was being, it was able to be passed down, you know, so it wasn't forgotten. And so the way they you know, you know, said these stories and these myths, you know, it was on purpose just so it wouldn't be forgotten. You know, not everything's literal or should be taken literal, but there is more. There's a truth behind all these myths and stories, folklore. All right. So just real quick, just want to show everybody. All right. So this is what is this? Genesis 6:8-6, I believe. Yeah, 8:7. All right. So it says, after 40 days, Noah opened the window he had made in the ark and sent out a raven. All right. So Mishabo, it kept flying back and forth until the waters had dried up from the earth. Then Noah sent out a dove. All right, so the raven in the story doesn't come back. All right, the dove actually came back. All right, so just real quick, we're gonna definitely show the Bigfoot video. I just want to continue. It said, then God, so that it's still talking about Mishabo, right? Then the God sent an otter on a like errand, but it too failed to bring back the needful terrestrial germ. At last, a muskrat was sent on the same mission, and it returned with sufficient earth to enable Mishabo to recreate the solid land. The trees had become denuded of their branches, so the god discharged arrows at them, which provided them with the new bows. After this, Mishabo married the muskrat, and from their union sprang the human race. All right, so we'll come back to the Muscovian creation story. All right, and we're gonna go, because you know, we were just reading how it said that, you know, that human or man and creatures came in different kinds. All right, so we're talking about, you know, we know we grew up with the story about Bigfoot and all that, and so we're gonna hear a new story behind, or folklore that he has a tribal story on it, and then we can talk about it.
There is an elder brother who lives in the woods, hidden by the leaves and the trees, elusive in nature, only to be seen or to give knowledge, or to spread a warning to some in nature something is truly wrong. He is said to be the guide to some, and others they call him a spirit. You may call him Sasquatch, others call him Bigfoot, but my people call him the Great Elder Brother. Here's the story of how he came to spread a unique knowledge of hunting to my people. Many moons ago, after the great flood water had left our land, the many elder brothers would go hunt deer, the buffalo, and fish to bring back meat to our people. In the warm seasons, the hunt was plentiful. The grass was many colors of green, and the trees gave us many wonderful types of fruit. During the hot season, the hunt sometimes would be many days' travel, would have to be made before they returned home. The elder brothers went out to hunt for food. 3 moons traveled to the west. The hunting ground was plentiful. While looking for food, the buffalo would be too large to bring back home, and the small game would not be large enough to provide enough food for our tribe. As they made the trek to the hunting ground, One of the elder brothers spotted a deer and drew back his bow. Seeing the deer was young, he withdrew his shot. This deer had not seen much life. His days had been short, and he had many seasons left. Later, seeing a large deer walk out into the low grass presenting himself, this time he drew his bow, and he thanked the deer and released his shot. The deer fell silent. The shot was precise and painless. The older brothers proceeded to trek back to the camp. Under the sweltering heat, the meat surely would not last long. The meat began to spoil before they could make it to the camp. Not wanting to waste any, they ate what they could and took the rest to camp. It did not provide much food for our people. They went out again. 3 moons traveled to the west, the hunting grounds. The elder brother again saw deer. Drawing back his bow and taking aim, he released, and a large creature appeared, grabbing the arrow out of the air and snapping it in half. The deer ran away, as the great elder brother looked at the hunters with a look that pierced them, leaving them petrified, and then he slowly retreated into the forest. Shaken, the brothers knew they had to obtain food for our people, so they continued to hunt there again and again. Drawing his bow to shoot, the great elder brother stepped out and stopped them. He approached the deer, which was scared. He grabbed the deer and broke its legs. As it lay on the ground, one of the brothers pulled out his blade to cease the suffering of the deer, but the great elder brother stopped him. Great elder brother reached on the ground, grabbing herbs and snapping them at the root. Next, he grabbed a handful of garlic and some of what they presumed to be devil's claw, and grabbed some honey from a nearby nest. The herbs were used to kill the pain, the garlic to stop the infection, and the devil's claw to stop the inflammation. He threw the deer over his shoulder and headed toward the direction of the village. Following him, they watched his movements and learned from the things he showed them. At the streams, he would take handfuls of water and give them to the deer to drink. If the deer showed any signs of pain, he would give him the same herbs that he did before. 3 days' travel, making it back to the village, and the deer was still alive. They prayed over the deer and thanked it for its submission before putting it to rest. Our people gave thanks, offering a feast to the great elder brother. But as mysteriously as he appeared, he disappeared. But it was aware that he had been watching over our people the whole time. This is the story of how the great elder brother helped feed our people. Some people like to call these legends, but for me, I like to believe that there's truth in them, that our ancestors really did see these things and deal with them on a regular basis. I would actually like to ask those listening whether you believe that the Yeti, the Grassman, the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, the many other names that they go by, whether this is one group of individual creatures or if there are many different tribes scattered across the world. Just a question to ask. Go ahead and leave something in the comment section, and would definitely like to know your input. Once again, thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, man, that's deep right there. So, I mean, it's obvious that this is more than just something that was made up in modern times as a conspiracy or anything like that. These shows that we used to have in the 80s and 90s. We see that in a lot of tribes' history and folklore. So, I mean, your personal thought on it. What do you think about the whole Bigfoot thing?
Oh man, I believe in it. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not saying I've seen Bigfoot or anything, but I've seen down in the apple orchards, we've seen branches that were twisted and snapped off. So we've never heard of a bear doing anything like that. So honestly, I can say I do believe in Bigfoot, and I believe there's tribes all over the world. But in order for people to admit there's Bigfoot, they would have to admit to a lot of other mythological creatures that really do exist. And I think that would open up a whole nother realm for people that they're scared to open up.
Okay, and so you think people are just too comfortable living in this society, like just worrying about, their phones and work and Facebook and money and, so like, as we see in a lot of movies that, but there's like, when they put it in the movies that there's other things going on. There's like two worlds going on at the same time. So, um, you know, it seems to be that there's like a whole spiritual realm, right? And where they got, these. So you're saying these beings from what the tribes, tribal history when they're talking about, the old elder brother and everything. Do they vibrate on a different frequency, or I mean, how do they? How come we don't see them all the time? What are your opinions about that?
From some of the old texts, yes, they do vibrate on a different frequency, but also they taught us how to hunt, so therefore they can avoid any ways we can hunt. They've dealt with us for many years, helping us out, showing us how to do things. But when man left their spirituality and wasn't able to see things on that frequency, we were no longer able to see our great elder brother. And only in certain circumstances, when you reach that spiritual plane, I do not condone astral projection or anything like that, so don't think it's that. But when individuals are able to open themselves up to nature, and when you're able to become one with nature, with your physical self and connecting back to the earth, then they say you are able to see more remnants of the great elder brother and other mythological creatures that still exist. Only because our eyes and our brain have been set on a materialistic plane, we've separated ourselves from being able to see the essence that's around us at all times.
All right, yeah, definitely. I mean, it was part of our stories, right? So, I mean, when did we stop talking about these things? I think that a lot of people still carry these stories, and a lot of people, listen and know about these stories, and kind of their own little investigation. It's things that don't get talked about a lot because then they, start saying that it's, conspiracies or just, they start looking at you like you're crazy and stuff. But you can't remove these stories from history. The biggest, civilizations, the important people, talked about these things in history. So, I mean, so like we're talking about frequencies and people coming from the stars. Um, how do you think they affect us today? Like these same, you know, or like what you were telling us about Atlantis, these people who like to war.
Man, you about to get into a real deep conversation. So it just depends how far you want to dig in this one.
Yeah, no, I mean just like I mean it doesn't matter really. I mean we're just discussing again. Um, it's part of the our stories and myths. So I mean there was kind of moral, messages behind them, and yeah, I don't think we're following most of them, right? And so, what do you think is the influence of what the natives or the ancestors called the star people on this realm?
Um, well, once again, from my perspective, I believe in actually I can't say for a fact, but in my heart of hearts, I truly believe that they're still around and they affect our everyday life. Um, the best place to find them and to talk about the star people would actually be the Book of Enoch, where they started talking about the fallen, each type of their each type of what we would consider magic, but each fallen had a specific science. They knew how to make weapons, they knew how to beautify, they knew how to do different things like that, and that does affect our everyday life, to this day. And I still believe they're here and they're embodying humans, and slowly they're slowly destroying the earth. And we kind of tend to look past it and neglect what's going on. But ultimately, those fallen, just again in my belief, those fallen, they do inhabit humans, and some of them can shapeshift. They can do numerous things. We've been taught that it's taboo, And not to get biblical, but you got to remember, they say that the devil's biggest trick was making the world believe he never existed. So when you can get rid of our mythology, you can get rid of the things that exist on this earth and make us believe that they never exist and they can roam free in front of our eyes. We just won't believe it's there.
Yeah, yeah. So we're talking about like like in the sense an adversary, right? Like there's a lot of things that could be your adversary. There's a whole big, we know that there was some kind of, big hijack done with how, we practiced our science, our math, our everything, when we see like, these things, what they call in the old world, whatever they want to call it, Kemetic and all that. We had our science, and we know, let's get into like Thoth, right? So Thoth brings it over there, right? He comes out in the Emerald Tablets talking about he brought it over there from Atlantis. We were just talking about Atlantis earlier. Um, so is there like a Thoth figure here in North America?
Oh, there's many. Oh my goodness, there's so many. It's not even
So
funny.
can you explain? Can you tell us about some?
The peacock. The
Okay.
peacock is that one in itself is a trickster. The fox is a trickster. There are so many animals that are taking the form, and actually, we were able to correlate Thoth to the peacock of ancient of history because of how the peacock fools people and how the peacock was able to make its tail look like numerous eyes. So it was not just a singular bird, but the fact it looked like numerous birds. Whenever it fanned out its tail, it looked like hundreds of eyes were looking upon you. And that's why it looks jade. That's why it has the emerald look to it. And I mean, there's mythologically, man, there's so many tricksters. Actually, Thoth is in one of the stories. Actually, two of the stories. It is not Thoth by name, but Atim and I am is one, and why the wolf howls at the moon is the other. And we do attribute the trickster in both stories as what would have been considered Thoth.
Okay. Yeah, so we know the peacock is very related to Thoth. If you haven't watched my Thoth videos and stuff, or just do the research yourself. And the whole evil eye, as you can see in this image, in Greek, I believe, mythology, it comes from the peacock, and well, they put it on the peacock. It came out of a giant's eye, and I believe one of Thoth's epithets, or Hermes' epithets, which is Thoth, was the one who did it, took it out of the giant and put it on the peacock. Have you heard about that story?
Yes, sir. It was a trick by Thoth tricking the giant. This is the story I heard. Um, Thoth had tricked the giant, and he had taken out the eye, and the giant was left with one eye. And the trick was that the giant would be able to see the future. But when he took the eye out and created the peacock, the only future that the giant could see was his own death, and that's the giant that we know as the Cyclops today.
Okay, the Cyclops. All right, and so it's basically very similar to what you have here, right? Like, and what do you so what is the recent the indigenous story behind why the peacock? You know, like how deep is it? How why is he the trickster? We can go by animals, right? So let's start with the peacock.
The peacock is a very proud animal. It's a very proud. It struts. It always shows itself off, and that was one of the main things. But the peacock in itself was considered to be weak. So it used the trick of making a deal with another trickster in order to figure out how to camouflage itself and make it look like it was bigger, fatter, and it
Okay.
had magical powers. So when it did that, it was able to get the eyes across its tail. So when it fans
Mm,
out its tail, it looks like numerous eyes, tricking its prey. I mean, tricking its predator into believing that it's way bigger than what it is, and also that there are more of them than what there really are.
Mm. Yeah, there's, I believe, a story in Muslim tradition how the peacock kind of sneaked its way into the Garden of Eden, and it was like kind of like the real serpent, not how what we think. So it dressed like a peacock, and then it changed while it was in there. So you about changing and stuff, it's same story. So we know that you're saying so Toph is related to the peacock, so that's one way. And you said the fox, because we know about how the fox is seen like a thief or like just like in Dora, swipe or no swiping, like it's sneaky and stuff. You was telling me about the dog people and stuff. Is that related? The dog-headed people. Can you tell us some stories about that?
Yeah, as far as the fox goes, it does correlate to the dog-headed people. The story of the fox in itself, the reason why the fox does, it has a unique sound. It there's a joke about how the fox makes its noise, but the fox was giving nothing but a cackle because every time it opened its mouth, it lied. So that's why the fox had its voice taken from it and it was given a cackle. So if you ever listen or you hear a fox make a noise, it's almost an undescribable noise.
Hmm.
So that was the trick. The fox, the creator took the fox's voice.
Okay. All right. And you think it has anything to do with the dog-headed people and tradition?
Yeah, yeah, I believe it does. I noticed that when I was looking through traditionally, you found numerous stories of people who, of course, when you found indigenous people, you would look more towards the werewolves, different things like that. But there were also a group of people who were coyotes, coyotes, foxes, different things like that. And the tribes had worn these, they had worn the headdresses. So we had believed, and we started to look into not just myself, but others started to look into the stories of why we knew why our group had wore the headdresses, but why certain ones had worn coyote, why certain ones had worn fox, because that's what they were taught. And we ultimately believe that they're resembling some of the dog headed people from those animal tribes. And when I say animal tribes, I don't mean tribes that use animals to represent themselves, but I mean individuals who were like, what would you call them? It's kind of like an animal human hybrid.
Okay. So what, so you were telling me, I think one day about you told me like some story behind them.
Oh, yeah, there's a couple of them. There's a couple of them that tell about, um, well, one, how they were created. They were created by, once again, we have to go into the star people, Nephilim,
Okay.
things like that. That's where you're going to start to hit into those because it says that the Nephilim come down and had breed with women. They didn't only breed with women; they had bred with different animals. That's where you find a lot of these mythological animals, chimera. Um,
Okay.
all around the world, you'll find tombs that they had destroyed the bones of something. They don't necessarily know what it was, but it terrified the people so bad that they had destroyed the bones, encased them in tombs, and made sure that they would never see the light of day. That something had to be terrifying for any people to do that. But there are stories, and not only stories, but there are actual tombs all over the world where they have done that. Like incinerated it, broken the bones. That's you have to have an intense fear of something, or believe that it would reincarnate.
All right. Just want to let everybody know that the image I got up, well, it's Anubis, right? We all know Anubis, the dog-headed. We know. Well, if you really kind of dig into it, Anubis is just another epithet of Thoth. Thoth is like one of these deities that kind of influenced a lot of these other gods, you know, and so um, the other one is Saint Christopher. If you don't know, Saint Christopher is a dog-headed Christian, or this is him right here. Hold on, let me show you. All right, Saint Christopher, right? Saint Christopher, right? Cynocephalus. All right, so you gotta go check out Khan Drop and his videos on that. Is deep. And that's the reason I brought it up to Anu, because I was telling him about it and I was watching it on his channel. And then he started coming out with the whole coyote and the whole stories correlation here in North America. And I was like, wow, it's everywhere. So it's not just like, this correlation everywhere. And so, do you know any other fox like stories like about it being a trickster?
I'm sorry, repeat the last part.
Do you know any other stories about the fox and then how he's a trickster, like any other
Oh
reference?
man, where should I start? Yeah, the fox is a known trickster throughout. I want to say about 90% of the tribes. You'll deal with the fox, you'll deal with the owl, uh, but the fox has done that. Of course, that's why the bear has a short tail now. They have a story of how the bear lost its long bushy tail was because it was tricked by a fox.
Hmm.
I mean, that was another great story. The fox has been a trickster throughout pretty much all of our tales. Very rarely, only will you find sometimes that the fox makes himself out to be a hero or does heroic, does anything heroic. But the majority of the time, you will find the fox either A, tricks to either steal something or to gain something out of just being selfish.
All right. Yes, I guess that's why they put it in the Dora thing, right? As Swiper the fox always trying to steal something, like they know something, right? And so we know that here in America, it was in the stories here as well as a trickster, and it's actually all over the world what they call the jackal, right, or the coyote or the fox, and makes me wonder what they have to do with Fox today, like Fox, the network, and these people, these part of the tricksters, and that city that what we're talking about. That's a whole different, deeper subject. But this, like you're saying, there, these things are amongst us today, and I think that there's a physical part, and then there's a spiritual part, and we only see the physical part. All right, so we know that you said the peacock, the fox, and what else is the rabbit, right?
Yes, yes, you'll find the hare, well, rabbit. You will find the owl. Um, oh my goodness, there's so many different tricksters, but there is
Okay.
always a way to tell them.
And what would you do you have any stories about the rabbit?
Actually, let me grab my book of myths.
All
I
right.
have one until I do that one. I have one off memory that I can tell about the fox.
All right. So we know there's that cereal Trickster for kids, right? They show that the rabbit, Bugs Bunny is kind of always like a little trickster, and and how they always try to put the hair or the 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 rabbit to raise the turtle, right? That's all symbolic, but the turtle always wins, right?
Oh yeah,
And
always does.
yeah, so
Okay. Wow, there's so many of them. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
jam. I'll just jam while you find it.
Oh, no problem. Okay, I found it.
All right. All right, let us know.
Let me know when you're ready.
Ready?
A long time ago, when Rabbit was first on the earth, He had very short ears. One day he had nothing to do. He was so very bored that he decided to play a trick on all the other animals in the forest. He told Beaver, "Did you know that the sun was never going to rise again?" Of course, Beaver told Squirrel, Squirrel told Chipmunk, and then Chipmunk told Skunk, and so on and so on. The story soon got around to all the animals, and they were all worried. The animals were very upset. They said if the sun is not going to shine anymore, it will be a dark and cold winter. We will have to gather food and get ready right now. Even Bear was worried. He began to eat and eat all the blueberries around him so he could grow fat and store his food. Squirrel was busy gathering all the nuts he could find. Everyone was busy getting ready for the sun not to shine again. They had no time to play, even though it was a very nice summer day. Now, Rabbit, he really thought this was funny. He hid in the bushes and he was laughing and laughing as he watched all the other animals running around, trying to get ready for the sun not to shine anymore. Along came Klaska. Normally, the animals were all very glad to see Klaska. They usually gathered around to talk to him. But this day, no one ran up to greet him. Klaska asked Bear, "How are you? How is everything going?" Bear said, "I have no time to talk to you, Klaska." So Klaska kept walking. No one paid him any attention, and Klaska went back to Bear. "Can I ask what's wrong with you? You're not talking to me. What's going on? Please talk to me. Something has to be wrong," Klaska said. "Well, don't you know," Bear said, "the sun is not going to shine anymore. We have to hurry up. I have to get ready for winter now. This is what everyone's doing. Please look around." So Klaska told Bear, "Whoever told you this story is lying and this is not true." So Klaska called a meeting of all the animals, and they all gathered around him in a circle. He got to the bottom of it. He said, "Who told you, Bear?" And Bear said, "Raccoon had told me." And Raccoon said, "Well, Chipmunk had told me." Everyone said who had heard the story from, all the way down to Beaver. And Beaver said, "It was Rabbit who told me. It was not me who created the story." Klaska said, "Well, where is Rabbit?" Rabbit was really scared, so he hid in the bushes. And Klaska knew for sure then that Rabbit had been the one who started the story. "Where is Rabbit?" he asked again. "Not there, he's gone. He must be hiding," Beaver said. Klaska went and looked in the bushes, and he found Rabbit. And when he did, he grabbed him by his ears and lifted him up and pulled on his tail to stretch Rabbit's ears. And this is how the rabbit got long ears and was remembered by the forest as one of the tricksters.
Hmm. Wow.
So, yeah.
It's just it's crazy how like they these stories relate to other people's old world stories about the same animal, same you know and then we see the nature, right, and portrayed um in the physical, like these animals, how they act, so I mean, what do you think is behind all these stories, like how does it even start, you know what is your interpretation of that, like how does they I know the stories, they're telling you the story, but what is like why was it passed down, why is this important, why is this important to remember?
All the stories have meanings to them. Each story, of course, has a defined meaning and something. The reason why normally it was placed on as animals is one, we do believe that the animals were tricksters, but also is something back then in nature you saw in everyday life to remind you not to do these things. So when you saw a fox and he didn't have his voice, it was because the fox was a liar. Or when you saw the rabbit with long ears, it's because he was playing a funny trick. So every time you saw these animals in nature, it reminded you that the creator would punish you if you did these wrong things, playing tricks, lying, doing things like that, stealing. So ultimately, you, of course, had a constant reminder wherever you lived and looked. And then, based off of that, traditionally, individuals got their names off of what they were like. So when someone got a name, and the name was, and the name had something to do with those animals, it was a tall tale sign of how or what that individual was like.
Okay.
So that's, that's what I believe.
All right. All right. Is there any other cool stories in that book you got right now, like that you can read to us?
Oh man, there's so many. Ooh.
Yeah, let us know a couple, man. I think the people enjoying these stories. You know, a lot of people never heard these stories.
Actually, if you could, while I get this set up, I'm about to find a good story. If you could go on. Nah, that one's a little too long because I was going to
All
get
right.
to the prophecies. Uh, Why the
Okay.
wolf howls at the moon. That one's a short one. Oh, Kyle, go ahead.
The creator's visit.
Yes, the creator's visit. That one is a very, very good story, Kyle. Thank you for putting that one up there.
All right. Would you like me to read time while you do that? Or?
Oh, if you could play the creator's visit, that's actually one that I have.
Oh, I thought okay. I thought you were gonna read it. I didn't know. Okay, let me get it.
Oh no, I'm looking up a good one. But what I'll if you could play the creator's visit, that will give me enough time, and hopefully, I would like to see what people think about the story.
Yep, the creator's visit. Okay, here we go.
The Creator made Klaskuk and told him to teach the people. Klaskuk and the people walked together, and he was there when the people needed his help. But sometimes the Creator sent other people to do his work. A long time ago, a young man and his grandfather lived together in the woods. They were very poor and didn't have much. One night the young man had a dream that the Creator came to visit him. When he woke up the next morning, he told his grandfather. The grandfather said he had had the same dream, so they took this as a good sign. The young man and his grandfather prepared a feast for the visit they would be getting from the Creator. They cleaned and they cooked, and even though they didn't have much food, they made some bread and soup. That morning, someone came knocking at the door. When the young man opened the door, 2 little children were standing there. They were very hungry, so the old man called them in and gave them something to eat. When the children finished eating, they helped clean up, and the old man sent them on their way. After noon, someone else came knocking at the door. It was another stranger, but this time it was a youth, a young man. "Oh, please, sirs, I am so hungry," he said. "Is there any work I can do for you in exchange for something to eat?" "Well, come in," said grandfather. "I will give you some soup." The visitor ate the soup and helped wash the dishes. He was very happy. He thanked both of them and set out on his journey to the next village. Not long after that, someone else came knocking at the door. "This must be the Creator," said the grandson. But when he opened the door, it was a middle-aged man. He was cold and very hungry. "Please, can you help me?" he said. "I am so hungry and cold." "Well, we don't have much food left, and we're expecting company, but I can give you a little bit of bread," said the old man, "and maybe some clothes to help you." The visitor ate the bread and drank some water. He was very happy. He cleaned up before he started his way on the next journey, warm and with food. It was getting dark outside, and still the Creator had not come to see the grandfather and his grandson. Around sundown, someone comes knocking at the door. The grandfather opens the door and sees an old man. "Please, oh please, could you give me something to eat? I am too weak to make it to the other village," said the old man. His grandfather was so disappointed that it was not the Creator that he slams the door in the old man's face. "Go away," he shouts at him. Outside in the yard, the old man had slipped and fell. He was so hungry and weak. When the grandfather and the grandson saw this, they felt bad. They ran up, helped him in the house, and they gave him some water and the last of their soup and bread. But there was no food left. When the old man left, he thanked them for the food. As they watched him walk away, he disappeared. The grandfather and the grandson were tired, so they finally went to sleep. The Creator once again comes to them in their dreams. They asked him, "Where were you? Why didn't you come to see us today? We made a feast for you." The Creator answered, "I was there today. Little did you know I was there 4 times, and each time you gave me food, water, and warmth. So from this day forward, you will never be hungry, thirsty, or cold again."
Nice. That's deep right there too.
Yeah, there's a message there's a message in all of our stories. And there's just so many of them that I believe that the children of today and even the adults of today need to know because it reflects how to treat each other. And, just like in that story, a lot of people say you never know who your company is. You could be in the presence of angels. You don't know. And I believe that happened and that occurred because of the Creator.
Yep. And do you have the other story ready right now?
There's so many good ones. Like, where would you like for me to go?
Man, don't worry. Just go. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about the length. We'll tell us a good one.
Oh, okay. Once Old Man was traveling around. When he came to the Sun's lodge, and the Sun asked him to stay a while, the old man was very glad to do so. One day the meat was all done, and the Sun said, "Kiai, old man, what say you we go and kill some deer?" "You speak well," the old man replied. "I like deer meat." The Sun took down a bag and pulled a beautiful pair of leggings that were embroidered with porcupine quills and bought feathers. "These," said the Sun, "are my hunting leggings. They are great medicine. All I have to do is put them on and walk around, a patch and brush, and the leggings set it on fire, and the deer dive out so I can shoot them." "Hey," acclaimed the old man, "how wonderful." He made up his mind he would have those leggings, even if he had to steal them. Then he went out to the hunt. The first patch of brush he came to, the Sun set fire with his hunting leggings. A whole lot of white-tailed deer ran out, and they each shot one. That night they went to bed. The Sun pulled off his leggings and placed them to one side. The old man saw where he put them, and in the middle of the night, when everyone else was asleep, he stole them and went off. He traveled a long time until he had gone far and was very tired, and then making a pillow of the leggings, he lay down and slept. In the morning he heard someone talking. The Sun was saying, "Old man, where are my leggings under your head?" He looked around and saw he was in the Sun's lodge, and he thought that he must have wandered around and got lost and returned there. Again the Sun spoke and said, "What are you doing with my leggings?" "Oh," the old man replied, "I couldn't find anything for a pillow, so I just put these under my head." Night came along, and again the old man stole the leggings and ran off. This time he did not walk at all. He just kept running until pretty near morning, and then he lay down and slept. You see what a fool he was. He did not know that the whole world is the Sun's lodge. He did not know that, no matter how far he ran, he couldn't get away from the Sun's sight. When the morning came, he found himself still in the Sun's lodge. But this time the Sun said, "Old man, since you like my leggings so much, I will give them to you. Keep them." The old man was very glad and went away. One day his food was all gone, so he put on the medicine leggings and set fire to a piece of brush. He was just going to kill one deer that was running out when he saw the fire was getting too close to him. He ran as fast as he could, but the fire gained on him and began to burn his legs. His legs were all on fire now. He came to a river and jumped in and pulled off the leggings as soon as he could. They were burnt to pieces. But perhaps the Sun did this to him because he tried to steal his leggings in the first place.
Hmm.
So
Can you explain that? Can you explain that to us in case people didn't understand it?
yeah, sometimes what people see as a gift is ultimately not. Each thing has a purpose, and if not used correctly, can be very destructive. There are reasons why people aren't allowed to have certain things. And there are reasons why people should stay away from certain things, and they should be in the protection of either a medicine man or a shaman, or say, for instance, things we use for medicinal purposes. You can't necessarily give that to anybody because they could hurt someone or do something very foolish with it. So ultimately, that story was to teach us things that are in the hands of specific people are in their hands for that purpose. And not all the time are they supposed to be shared. You will eventually learn a lesson from misusing things that you weren't supposed to have in the first place.
Yeah, that's deep right there. And it's like these lessons that were being passed down, to us, and it's just like, we kind of like ignored them, like we forgot about them. They made us forget about them, but in a large part, we don't care about them, right? There's a lesson, a message behind all of them. Do you think that we're at a time now that we're able to start listening and understand, knowing now that you are the ancient people, and you are the people of this land, the people who came up with these stories, most likely, probably, and so do you think we're at that point right now, or what do you think?
I believe we are. I believe people are waking up, and as we begin to transition from materialism back to spirituality, once again, we will see these things and we'll remember. We'll remember how to properly hunt. We'll remember what these stories meant to our ancestors and ultimately what they mean to us. This is how we were taught, and this is how we remember. How often do we forget? But I believe this is an age and an era where people are going to awaken, and they will see the beauty in spirituality and nature. And I can only hope that they'll begin to take care of the world and understand that we only get one. So, we have to take the best care of it as we can.
Yeah, that's deep. I mean, if we want a future, at least for our children and their children, you were talking about earlier about how we knew how to preserve the land and treat it right especially when we're growing things. So you said every 7th year. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, even in the biblical text as well as our text, every 7 years the land is supposed to rest. You can plant things on the land, but ultimately the minerals are taken from the land, and in the 7th year you'll find out it's extremely weak. That was one of the reasons that we did that, but not only did that, but that's one of the reasons that Israelites were punished, which kind of coincides that we did the same practices that are found in the biblical text.
All right.
Letting the land rest every 7 years, letting the body rest on every 7th day. All these hold an importance.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you said something very important there. And, we're trying to show you, that you are the people they write about in these biblical accounts. And we know that, when it comes to what they write in the Torah of the Israelites, living like the practices they had, and their whole history, their lessons, what they went through, and we see it and we read about it in the indigenous tribes here of America. I mean, your experience from it. I know you were born into a tribe and stuff, and do you see yourself as an Israelite?
Yes, always have. From our practices to, our customs. There are certain customs I can't talk about, because they are ceremonial, but all of our ceremonial practices are the same. You could find them almost word for word for what the biblical text describes. Our Feast of Intergathering. I mean, there's a lot of different things that we practice, and we do see ourselves as Israelites. And of course, as you said in your previous videos, the word Indios or Indian, the people of God. And we've known that.
All right. And so you're not, when you say we, it's not just like your opinion. So, I mean, is this something that I know that your ancestor or anybody didn't say like we were called that, but they what you're saying is they believe they are the ones being written about, right? They're the ones, the ancient ones that had these stories, and is that what you're saying, or?
Yeah, that's why it was so easy. A lot of people, and I'll just generalize in this one, which I don't like doing, but a lot of people looked at it and were like, "Oh, well, to convert to Christianity was very hard and it actually wasn't, because it involved all of our practices anyway. We just didn't believe that the Creator was in the form of a book, but the practices that were there was actually easy for a lot of people to convert over to Christianity because we had already been practicing these things for thousands of years. So when they brought to us different feasts and festivals, and they looked at our feasts and festivals, we had already been practicing them. So therefore, we knew it was us. We knew who it was.
Yep.
So converting, it was just a change in name for us. It wasn't a change in practices or spirituality or anything else. It was just a change from what we called ourselves. And even in the Tutelo language, the word for God is Injin, Eingyen. So it's close to Indian in itself. That is the word for creator. So when we were called Indians, we really didn't mind it because we were still being called the people of God. And it's been said, not completely sure, but from Indio and the word Injin, when you combine them, you get the word Indian. So you have people of God in the Spanish sense, and you have Injin, which is the meaning for God or godly in Tutelo. So, when they called us Indians, we really didn't take offense to it. It's just you were calling us the people of God.
All right. Yeah, so it's a controversial topic and subject, but I guess a lot of people take it like we're talking about religions and books that were written by men that over there on the other side of the world. Kyowa just put something there. You mentioned the feast of intergathering. From what what you've told me it's like, and what I'm reading, it does seem like it's basically the original Thanksgiving. It's just something they came and saw us doing, and then they took it and made it into a holiday when they started it, right? When they started doing their Thanksgiving, celebrating their whole takeover and hijack. But it's something that they saw us doing. Some related to the Feast of Tabernacles as well, and but because it's the harvest, right? So intergathering is like harvesting, right?
Yes, harvesting, the day when all people come together and you celebrate. It's a day of no war, and it's a day that you give thanks. That's why it falls at the end of fall, at the end of the harvest. So once you harvest everything, you go to the Creator and you thank the Creator for the bounty that He has laid before you for that season. And just in general, it's a way of showing thanks. And that feast was the last feast day. It was the last day of harvest while the food was still fresh. You all got together, you made a good hunt, you feasted, you sat down, you enjoyed, you shared tales. And it wasn't just a one-day thing like we know. It's said to have lasted 7 days sometimes, just because they were showing such great things to the Creator with dances and, stories, and just loving the Creator and showing the Creator that we loved each other.
Yep.
So it's our day.
Okay. I mean, it's just so we've mentioned already a lot of stories like the flood, the deluge, the creation story, the Noah. We know in Mexico, Cocox, the whole Noah thing is big there. And I mean, just the word Mexico. And you gotta understand, it's not about believing, but like we grew up believing things, right? Because they didn't teach us really anything growing up, so we had to believe in things. They wanted us to believe in this, believe in that, believe in Africa, believe in monkeys, believe in all this stuff, aliens, all this kind of stuff, right? But we're at the point, well, at least I am, I wanted to start knowing, stop just believing in everything, kind of try to put some truth behind everything. And one of those things is seeing this correlation. I mean, I got a picture up right now. Can you explain to us who that is, Nu?
Yes, actually, that's my great grandfather.
That's your
Um,
that's your great grandfather.
great grandfather, R.D. Harris. He is
Okay.
a very strong and powerful Catawba Indian. He is a progenitor of a lot of the Harris family, but very wonderful man. You know, I didn't get to know him, but the stories I've heard, you know, just passed down, he was a very, very powerful.
Okay. And I just wanted to it's because we're talking about being trendsetters. We're talking about being the original people, the people they write about in these biblical accounts. In the flesh. Right now, we're not just talking about what they show us on TV, and we're not talking about the ish, the Jewish. We're not talking about that, and we're not even talking about Hebrew, because Hebrew is like a description, like those who live on the other side, those who cross, those beyond, a migrant, and people on the move. People that separated Eber. It comes from Eber. Eber, when you go into the whole etymology and the Strong's, the definition, it means pinion, and pinion is feather, and it goes back to feather. All right. So Ibra, Abra, Iber, Hebrew. It's not like, obviously the ancestors didn't call themselves that. That was just a name being given to them, a descriptive term. And it did become a religion. We call it a language as well. But we're just talking about a mother tongue, really, because we know it's not that everybody's saying that everything comes out of Hebrew. All right. Well, what we're saying is, what they call Hebrew in the Bible, or the language, it does come out of this mother tongue from here in America, which, it was this pictograph at first, and then it became what they call the Paleo Hebrew, and we can find this all over, the United States and different parts of America. And they even credit the Phoenicians to being the first to deliver language, or phonetics, Phoenicians phonetics to the world, written stuff, and Canaan, this is Canaan. This is the Holy Land right here. This is Canaan. So we know Phoenicians came out of here speaking that Paleo Hebrew. They're getting credit for it, but it's, when you go and research it, it's basically Paleo Hebrew. The Phoenicians were speaking. And we have the Moabite stone. We know that Moab as a nation, you can't deny they didn't exist. They found the stones in the world with the writings. And the Moabite kings even talking about how they had beef with Israelites. These ain't forgeries. These are in museums right now. Look it up. The Mesha steel, Moabite stone. All right, and it's again another form of the Paleo Hebrew. We found, they found some tablets here in Michigan, Paleo Hebrew. Even the Book of Mormon. That's all us. What Joseph found and all that. That's why they try to they set up shop in Utah, Judah. You know, people living in high place, and the etymology, if you go look at it up, right? And then we know that in Judea there was a Levitical town called Judah in the Bible. And if you don't know that, I mean, that's what I'm saying. We're trying to correlate real things. We're not just trying to read it as religion. It's really a lot of history in it. You just got to look at it different. And so we're not trying to spread any kind of dogma or doctrine. It's just the facts. What we've been passed down orally. I mean, a lot of the ancestors already knew who they were and why they dressed a certain way. And I'm showing a news great grandfather here. If you see that little white thing he got with the crosses and stuff, obviously we're not talking about Christian crosses, but you see priests today, like especially Catholic priests, they put a little apron or something like that with the same exact symbols coming down their robe on both sides. We know that a lot of the Indian clothing was fringes all over. We know that there's a part in the Bible that says they told the Israelites to wear fringes so you'll never forget who you are. There's reasons behind all this tradition and clothing and the ceremonies and the feast of inner gathering and just the whole believing in one creator, the great spirit. It comes from somewhere. All right. If you don't rock with it, it's not in your nature. It might be for a reason. It might be for a reason, and that's cool. But you know, like at least in my part, I hope people know that I don't just try to go into things with just because I believe. All right, that was in my past. That's how we grew up. We grew up believing, right? So when people say they don't believe in Moses or they don't believe in this story, and you know, I just wanted to show, you know, one thing. Well, I don't know if I can find it right now, but you know, if you go into the story of the Kachikels, the Quiche, the Kachikels, the Maya, we're talking about Maya, right? They talk about coming from Tulan, Aslan, and had their priest king, their king, with a staff, their red stick. They called it the red stick. That's why they called themselves the Kachikels, meaning the red stick. They were coming from the north before they got to Mexico, and that their priest king parted the sea with his staff. You know, this is in their codices. This is translated from the Quiche, a Quiche elder. This is an old book. And then we got the Mexica story, which are the Aztec, right? But it's really the Mexica. They call them Mexica. That's where you get Mexico, the Mexica people, named after their priest king Mexitlin, Meshi, who led them from, again, Aslan into their promised land. That's their whole origin story. So you gotta understand these stories, and not, and you know, when I read the same exact story in the Bible, I'm like, oh wait, somebody copied somebody. Now I understand who they're talking about. Now there's a deeper feeling with it. There's a better understanding of why they would come here and enslave you. Why they wanted this land, this promised land. Why you were over here separated for, you know, hundreds of years. All right, and so I mean, I'm getting a little off track here, but we were going over mythology, you know, and it's they'll call, you know, if it was written and if it wasn't written in the Bible, these stories, they wouldn't call them biblical. They would call them mythology, right? They'd call them mythological, you know, stories or whatever, you know. But they're written in the Bible, so now they're biblical. But it's part of
Well,
your oral tradition. Go ahead.
and when you mention the fringes, Numbers 15:30 to 40. Speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put onto the fringe of borders a riband of blue. And it shall be unto you for a fringe, that ye may look upon it, and remember all the commandments of the Lord, and do them, and that ye seek not after thy own heart and your own eyes, of which you use to go a whoring,
Hmm.
but that ye may remember and do all my commands and be holy unto your God. You know, so you spoke about the fringes, and there it is. Our people had those before the Europeans came. You know, so Kurimeo, he's pushing it out there, and he's really bringing it, and he just, you know, he brings the information. And I tell everybody, listen up and listen closely. He knows what he's talking about. Trust.
All right. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely no agendas or anything like that. You know, again, people can take it however they want, the info, or you know, time would tell. You know, and there's a definite reason. You know, there's a specific reason why you're special too. You know, and why this is your inheritance, this land, and you know, you had like when I was saying earlier, they came here, they found you living like the golden age, the people of the golden age. It's in their own words. The Spaniards, they all said that. They couldn't believe it. They're just like, wow, you know. And you know, right now I'm showing, you know, part of the people that the so-called pilgrims encountered. Right, we're talking about Algonquin speaking peoples. We're talking about Wampanoags, Narragansetts, you know, and you know that whole area up there. And you know, again, we know John Eliot, you know, translated the first Bible in the Americas. Was actually written in Algonquin. It wasn't in English. It wasn't in. It was written in Algonquin. That was the first Bible here. And like what Anu was saying, it was easy to evangelize because they were trying to tell us our own stories back to us in a different way. So it's kind of like we related. And why you think, you know, a lot of the, you know, not everybody's family or grandparents or anything like that was into, you know, the Christian religion or Catholic or whatever, or anything like that, or even Islam, you know, the Quran, you know, that's you know, stories a little bit match sometimes with the Torah. But you know that you can see why was it easy for us, like Anu was saying, to fall for this, you know, for this religion, for this Jesus, because we, you know, the whole time it sounded like our prophets, our ancient ancestors. We're not talking about biblical people. We're talking about somebody. If I'm telling you that, you know, that the Kashikels have a story of somebody bringing them there and separating the seas and stuff, we're talking about your people. We're talking about, this is a story, this sign that happened, whether it happened for real or not. It's part of the story here in America, pre-Columbian, before they came. You know, so I don't know. I think I was gonna kind of end it right there. It's kind of late for me, but yeah, I think we're gonna have a new on, you know, a lot more, and try to be more organized. We have, you know, anybody want to get down with these conversations, just let me know. Send me an email, and you can be on the panel too, and you can spread your knowledge with it, and you know, ask questions if you have any and everything live. While we have, you know, other people here, like another guest, maybe try to get other people to come on. But I appreciate everybody tuning in, and you know, and anything you kind of want to finish off with before I go.
Honestly, I would like to thank everybody who stayed and continue watching. I know it is late, and I hope, you know, everyone did enjoy the stories. I thank you for bringing me on. Believe me, it's greatly appreciated. I want to give a shout out to everyone in the chat, and definitely, man, I hope Kurimeo continues to put out more information, you know, and just lights a fire under everybody. And spiritually, we'll be able to seek each other out, and, you know, to be able to send blessings across the four directions, you know. So, like I said, I do want to thank you guys, and I definitely want to thank you, Kurimeo, and I want to thank all the people in the chat, Kiowa, Obimi, Hawah, Nagi. I mean, so many different ones in the chat. You know, sorry for being so long-winded though.
No, don't worry, man. Hey, Kyo, you still there?
Yes, sir.
Hey, man, anything you want to say? And what do you think about today's presentation, or what we were discussing?
It's beautiful. Straight piece. So I would say it's not your normal build, you know. It's coming from a whole different perspective.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
People to see a whole other view of the Indian way, I guess you could say.
Yeah, exactly.
We got one request though, Kurimeo. Could you play one more video?
Yeah, definitely.
The it's called "The Kindness of the Pine Tree."
Okay.
It's gonna be a good little story and going for everybody. Give them a nice little message out of that one too.
Yeah.
Great choice, my brother.
In the early times, the trees and animals were able to talk to one another. They lived close to each other and shared many things. But every year the cold time came and the birds would fly south to where it remained warm and would return with their families in the spring when the warm season returned. One year, as the cold season approached, a young sparrow was injured. He would not be strong enough to fly to the warm lands with his family by himself. So on his decision, he made his family fly south to the warm lands without him. Injured, he knew he would not survive the cold season, so he sought the help of the trees. He approached the great oak. "Oh, oak, I am injured and cannot fly. The cold season approaches, and if I do not find shelter before then, surely I shall die. Please, oak, lend me shelter among your leaves and branches during the cold times, that I might heal and greet my family on their return in the spring." But the oak was an old, mean tree, and did not relish the idea of having a guest in the cold time, so he told the sparrow, "Sparrow, go find somewhere else to spend the cold time. I do not wish to have you spending time with me." And the sparrow was hurt in his spirit to be turned away. So the sparrow went to Maple and asked her, "Maple, I am hurt and not able to fly to the warm lands with my family for the cold season. Please lend me shelter among your leaves and branches during the cold time, or surely I will die." And the maple, though being such a very sweet tree, did not enjoy the thought of having a guest for the cold time, and she too turned the young sparrow away. "You go ask someone else for shelter. I do not wish to spend the cold time with you." Again, the sparrow bowing his head, hurt in spirit. Sparrow went and turned to each of the trees in the forest and asked each for shelter in the cold time, and each and every time, Sparrow was turned away until there was no tree left to ask except for the pine. With no hope left, but not willing yet to accept death, Sparrow approached the pine. "Pine, I am injured and not able to fly south to the warm lands with my family. If I do not find shelter before the cold time, I will surely perish. Please, lend me shelter among the leaves and branches during the cold time." Pine thought to himself, "I am the least of the trees, so what can I do?" But his heart heard Sparrow's plight. "Sparrow, my leaves are tiny and they're more like needles. My branches are not as the many other trees, but what I have, I am welcome to share." And so Sparrow spent the cold time with the pine, and when the warm times returned in the spring, the sparrow's family also returned. And the sparrow had healed over the cold time, and it flew to greet with great songs of happiness. The Creator had seen and heard all that had happened between the sparrow and the trees, and the Creator called a great council of trees and spoke to them. "You who are given so much, who had so much, would not share the least of what you had with the poor sparrow in his time of need. Because of this, from this day forward, when the cold time is upon the land, your leaves shall wither and die and blow away, and you shall remain cold, just like you would have done to the sparrow." Then the Creator came and called the pine forward, and he spoke to the pine. "Pine, you who had the least of all the trees, gave so much, and you have truly touched my spirit. When the cold times come, you of all trees shall keep your leaves. They shall remain green through the seasons. Sparrow. And that is why to this day, that when the cold times come to the land, all the leaves wither and die and blow away, except for pine, forever showing how great kindness in times of need is seen by the Creator."
Yeah, that's deep right there. Pine tree. And what you know about the cedars of God, huh? What you know about the cedars of God? Hold on. Coronavirus, come on now. Oh man, let's dodge the hijacking, let's stay in that positive vibe because we are co-creators, right? We gotta, our thoughts are energy waveforms, they help create things. So be careful what you think, and they wanna, it's a war for your mind, right? All this news and all that, they want you in a state of fear. That's what they want you in a state of fear, so you can vibrate low. All right, but again, thank you for being here and tuning in. You know, um, just want to say, it doesn't always have to be about debating, fighting, being mad, arguing. Sometimes we could just build and remember the ancestors, be peaceful. They had their time, and like Anu was saying earlier, there's always a time for everything. It's even in the land, you gotta wait 7 years after you use it for 7 years. You gotta let it get healthy again. And that even with you got to take your rest too sometimes. Just got to be give thanks, be in a happy mood, be peaceful, away from everything. And I hope everybody, I guess, again, enjoyed it. Anu, thanks a lot for coming by here, and I know we're gonna have you on again. Hopefully we can have some other brothers here. I'm talking about real true brothers that are static free, because we ain't trying to bring no static over here. We just build. So, thanks for coming over. All right. Let me just...
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's greatly appreciated.
All right. Yeah, definitely. And gonna have you on, anytime, because I know where your heart lies. We vibe on a spiritual level. We on a different frequency, and it's automatic. We speak a different language. We talk, a spiritual language, and that's because of what we're coming from, who our ancestors are, and what's the essence that we're carrying. So if you're a warmonger, you know, and you just like fighting, then maybe that's your nature, man. You know, it's okay, man, because there's, you know, everybody's not the same. So, you know, thanks for tuning in. You know, Hawah bless, Jahawa, Wakan Tanka, you know. How would you say, what was the creator's name in Tutelo? Do you know, Anu?
You actually said it when you said it. Wonka Tonka.
Okay, Wankatanka, all right?
Yep.
Wakanda forever, right? Wakantanka. The gig is up, all right? We're gonna go out with the Heya Heya. All right, again, thanks for tuning in. I want to just vibe a little bit with the Heya Heya. Give thanks and praise, you know.